Hi, Ty.
Hi there, how are you?
Good to see you.
You too. Thanks for having me.
Oh my goodness, thanks for being willing to share your story. I think you're so inspirational, so I really appreciate this.
Oh, my pleasure. And good for you for thinking enough to do this and had the courage to do it, and also having the vision to help other women understand their options.
Yeah, that's really huge because I work in the fertility space and breast cancer, and topic of fertility comes up almost too late, especially when cancer is involved. And
Mm.
so I really just want to be a voice for women that to think about their fertility sooner.
Absolutely, I agree. 100.
Yeah. So how about we start with you telling us a little bit about yourself for anybody that maybe doesn't know you?
So I live in New York City for right now. Spent a lot of time in LA. I'm originally from New Jersey. Um, I am a woman who believes in the power of women, and I like to say that first and foremost because I think oftentimes society has told us to define who we are based upon the roles and the jobs that we have, opposed to what our heart and our spirit speak to us, and so that's who I am. Professionally, I am a former magazine editor turned TV personality and host and entrepreneur. I run a site called the TaiLife.com, which is a site that women come to feel enlightened, inspired, and empowered through style. And it draws on really my own personal philosophies about life, but also about lifestyle. Having started my career with Oh the Oprah magazine as a beauty editor, ultimately, and going through the train of publishing as an editor, and then evolving into an entrepreneur and working in philanthropy, I just firmly believe that empowering people. And because I love fashion and lashes and
Yeah,
lipstick and blush, I try and put all of that in there too.
that's awesome. I love fashion. It's great. Um, Tell us a little bit about, or share with me how fertility became on your radar, or even egg freezing, because I know you've been very public about that.
I haven't. Well, it came on my radar actually. I was about 28 years old, and I have two girlfriends who I call big sisters, who actually told me at 28 that I should freeze my eggs, and I thought that they were absolutely crazy.
When
I'll give
was
them
this? What
uh,
year?
20. I'm 38 now, so 10 years ago. Yeah, 2006.
Wow, that was really progressive of your friends to tell you about egg freezing because it wasn't even approved until 2012.
Yeah, they told me then, and I think it was because, and one of them was very public or shares her story within circles that she was thinking about having a child then and had some challenges, and so I think she was just passing her along her wisdom. So I have to give heartfelt love to Kim Hatchett and Karen Pavlin, who are twin sisters and both dynamos. One is at Morgan Stanley and manages private wealth there, and the other one is at Xerox, and they're like kick-ass women. And so I thank them for sharing that insight with me at 28. But I was like, wait a minute, I got time. I got time, is what I thought then.
Isn't that funny though? Because we do trick ourselves. It's almost like a reassurance factor. Like, oh, well, you're so young, you have time. But how fast time goes, and then you wake up, and all of a sudden you're 35.
It's not funny, actually.
It's horrible.
It ain't funny at all. I'm like, where the heck did the time go? Yeah, no, it's crazy. But I did say to them then, I said, guys, I said, I love you ladies. Like, this is fabulous. If I'm 35 and not married or have a potential partner that I want to have a child with, then I'll do it. And I think 35 was just the number for me at that time. Um, just because I felt like maybe I was going to be approaching middle age at 35, which was naive because I'm not middle aged. But I did take note of what they said. I definitely took note.
Okay, so that was the beginning of planting the seed, so to speak, and then where did it go from there?
I was 33 and was diagnosed with fibroids, which is a very common experience and health challenge for especially African American women. More than 70% of African American women are diagnosed with fibroids. My mother had them, my grandmother had them. And so at 33, when I self-diagnosed myself with fibroids, I actually knew what they were. I knew they were fibroids because my mother had had a hysterectomy. My grandmother had had a partial hysterectomy. Um, And it was at that time when I went to see my doctor, who I'd been having conversations with for many years. She had been my doctor since I was 17, my gynecologist. I said to her, I said, look, I know I have to take these fibroids out. Do I do it before I freeze my eggs or after I freeze my eggs? I said, because, if at 35, I'm freezing my eggs. And so I had the surgery to remove my fibroids at 33. And for my 35th year of my birthday, that was one of my presents to me. And I say one of them.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. I did egg freezing for my 33rd birthday, so I relate
Ah,
totally.
wow, look at
Yeah.
those numbers.
I know, I love it.
Yeah.
Um, so how did you go about picking like your clinic and knowing where to fertility wise go?
Well, I was fortunate in the sense that like I said, I had such a close relationship or have such a close relationship with my former OBGYN, who had been my doctor since I was 17, that I just went on her referral.
Great.
And she is someone who literally wasn't even my surgeon during my fibroid removal, my myomectomy, but was in the surgery. So I had a very close rapport with her. And I think that that's really important as women think about this process because, now I have lots of friends who have come to me. I've actually sent several people to my clinic that I went to in New Jersey, RMA of New Jersey, which has one of the highest rates of success in cryopreservation, which
Which
egg
is egg
freezing
freezing.
preservation, and then actually unfreezing them. So they have a really high rate. So I've sent people there, but I do think that the conversation has to be one of great comfort. One of my friends that I sent to RMA of New Jersey went to another fertility here in New York, fertility clinic in New York, and said that she didn't like the bedside manner at all. So it's going to be about comfort because some people and some doctors will tell you that you don't have a great chance of or likelihood or great prospects and numbers and statistics with this process, and then someone else will. So I really do think there should be a process of speaking to several people, unless, unlike me, you had someone like your doctor that you
That you
trusted.
immediately trusted. Yeah, yeah. I think trust is a huge factor too, because you're spending so much money and making an investment in your future that you want to feel comfortable that the whole way through the process you have someone to hold your hand.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah. So tell us about like when you had to give yourself the first shot and the med process. Like, what was going through your head?
I felt crazy. I mean, honestly,
Me too.
I, I thought to myself, at that point, I knew I wasn't going to turn back because I had spent a ton of money on the medicine, right? Alone, right? So I had written the check for the procedure, but you also, people don't realize you spend the part of the cost, the high cost and everything is the estimate of how much the drugs will actually cost.
Right.
And so, swiping your card for $4,500 just for the meds, and you have them when you're about to give yourself that first injection, you're like, wait a minute, this is crazy. Mom told me not to do drugs.
I wouldn't make a good drug addict. That's what
Right?
I
'Cause
found out.
don't do drugs. Don't you stay away from syringes, like all of that. And I was like, oh my God, I feel crazy. What am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? So you do start to question yourself. And I think that's where having a support system, my parents didn't understand what I was doing or why, but I did have a girlfriend who had done it before me.
Oh, wow.
And she said to me, call me if you need. But I also, it can be somewhat isolating, but I think that, you just have to encourage yourself ultimately, because once you get to that place, you're doing it.
Right. You need to remind yourself about why you're doing this and
Exactly.
remember that this is for your future self and you're giving yourself options. I love that.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, so I felt really crazy with the meds as well. I like cried at commercials. I'm like, who is this person?
Well, by the time you start taking all those hormones, people, they don't tell you in a very kind of like direct way but you're going through the first round of IVF.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
when women go through IVF and in
They're
vitro,
doing the same thing as we're doing.
it's the same exact first step, or two steps actually. But so it is very emotional because you're injecting yourself with hormones, and there's a lot of sensitivity. The way I like to describe it is how I felt. Is I felt like I was PMSing probably times like 50.
Or I like to describe it as like maybe this is how pregnancy would feel. Like you start to have those hormone reactions.
Okay. Yeah, it was interesting. I love that idea because that's something that you're ultimately possibly looking to do anyway and looking forward to. Um, but yeah, I felt I was super moody, and
Yes.
just the process of giving your shots, especially when you get closer to doing your trigger shot. So after, I injected myself, I think for 12 days was
Mm-hmm.
my cycle, or maybe it was 12 or 13. And when I had to do the trigger shot, like, which is what you do at the same time in the morning and in the afternoon, the day before you go in.
Right, 36 hours
um,
before the procedure.
exactly. It was at lunchtime, and I was at lunch in a restaurant. So I had,
Oh,
and I was actually on a date, and I was like, this is
you were on a
such,
date?
I was like, this is BS. This is BS. This makes no sense. I'm over this. Is such bullshit. Um,
So you gave yourself the trigger shot in the butt by yourself in the bathroom of a restaurant while on a
yeah,
date.
yeah,
That's a lot.
yeah. So it was a lot, but at the same time, I thought to as I'm in the bathroom, and obviously I took a lot longer than I should have. It was like, what's going on there? And that's not something that you talk to people about
Right. No.
in an early relationship, not so early anyway. But yeah, it was a very interesting process.
Yeah. And then you went in for the retrieval, and how did the retrieval go?
My parents took me in for the retrieval,
Okay.
um, which was also very interesting because, they're still like, okay, what's happening now? Now, what happens with these eggs? I mean, as you're educating yourself, you realize that you're also educating people close to you, right?
Right.
My mom had this very funny thing. She said, "So you're paying for the kids before the kids even get here." I'm trying to understand how all this
Oh, I
works.
love that. That's great.
Um, and I'm like, yeah. But retrieval went well. My mother cried. I was
Oh,
fine. It was very short. The entire process. I mean, you do go under local anesthesia, so you have anesthesia. But I think I was in the retrieval maybe 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes. So it wasn't a very long process at all. In recovery, maybe for another 45 minutes to an
yep.
hour. Then I went home. Um, and it was successful. I was really pleased. They retrieved 13 eggs, and of the 13, 10 were successfully frozen.
That's great. That's great. So, where are you at now? Like, are you planning? You feel like you're going to use these eggs, or
I don't know. I mean,
yeah?
I really don't know. When I froze the eggs, I had people were asking me, did I think I would do it on my own? Did I think by a certain age? I didn't set any of those parameters or boundaries at the time, and this was 3 years ago. Um, I don't know. I mean, I think as I live life, it's just reassuring to know that I have them there. For me, it was more insurance. It
Mm-hmm.
was more insurance. I've always known that I wanted to be a mother. I still believe I want to be a mother, both biological and through adoption, possibly. And just knowing that they're there for me, it gives me a great relief. But I don't know if and when I'll use them.
I feel the
I
same way. That's so
Yeah,
funny.
yeah,
It's like I don't want to say yes, I'm going to do this, or no, I'm not going to do this because I don't know how I'm going to feel. Maybe I'll wake up at 40 and be like, okay, it's time to have kids on my own and be that
yeah.
choice mom. Or maybe you'll find that great relationship and you wait until you find that partner. I just like the options. I think the options are great.
I, I mean, and that's one of the things that I encourage younger women to think about sooner. And it's not just about options around fertility. I think that we live in a culture, and I've said this publicly before, but I think we live in a culture where the Sheryl Sandbergs are telling us to lean in, and that's a beautiful thing. But no one's telling us to spread out, because as we're leaning in to everything professionally, we have to also start to think about our lives holistically and sooner. And so, I am the product of a single mom who worked very hard, went to college, went to grad school, along with my grandmother, who also worked very hard, went to grad school. And the reality is that they told me to go to college, focus on your career. No one was saying focus on your personal life and what that looks like. So one of the things I say to my mentees now is like at 26 years old, 27 years old, 28 years old, when you're starting to hit your stride and you have a sense of who you are, not only professionally, but just a sense of who you are, then you should start to invest in what you want from your life in terms of relationships. And we have to start telling young women that, whether or not that's a partner, whether or not that's children or not, the reality is that that takes investment. We can't tell ourselves to invest in our finances. We can't tell us to invest in our careers. We can't tell ourselves and not invest in ourselves and our personal relationships as well. So I want to shift that conversation, because I think when we shift that conversation, women will start to think about whether or not they want to be mothers or not sooner, and do what it takes to ensure that they can do that, as well as lean in and spread out, as well as like jump rope and travel and all of that other stuff. So I think that that's really important.
That is so powerful. Thank you.
And I think that also recognizing that this is the time of women, we're advocating more than ever, not only for what we want professionally, what we want personally, but what we want for our health, what we want for financially. So it's these type of conversations that are going to trigger us to advocate for ourselves and what we want. But the thing I do say is that if this is something, if you think you want to be in a relationship, if you think you want to be a PhD, if you think you want to be a mother, whatever it is, you take those resources that are readily available to you and you do it. So it really is about a personal choice. But for me, and the young women that I stay connected to, more options, the more options, the better.
Absolutely.
And it's totally worth the investment, in my opinion. And I also think that young women are going to start doing it earlier, because if I had to do it all over again, and I had the resources at 28 to do it, when Kim and Karen said I should, I would have, because your 28-year-old eggs are going to be better than your 35-year-old eggs, and so on.
Yeah, that's really true. That's a good point. I think I would say the same thing. You really can't do this soon enough. So maybe even parents investing in their future grandchildren is kind of a cool idea. And for a graduation present, instead of doing something else, you can invest.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I actually have another friend of mine who said that she was telling her daughter, who's 23, that she was happy and willing to do it. And I also know, I've heard of stories where women whose parents had saved for weddings and what have you,
Yeah.
who maybe not yet at the altar, who are using that money to invest in their fertility. And I think that, what we have to try and lose is the stigma about talking about women's health issues and fertility. Openly. It's not just about fertility. It's not just about it. It becomes a human issue,
right?
And I think when we look at it as a human issue and a right, quite frankly, for us to build community, mm-hmm. right? And so when you think about it in those terms, you start to ask yourself different questions, and then that obviously leads to hopefully better solutions and more solutions.
I agree. Yeah, and I think you're right about the insurance companies. They are going to start paying for it. I can already see it now. I mean, there's about 12 to 11 or 12 states that mandate cover IVF. So it may not be necessarily egg freezing, but at least some of the drugs and things of that nature are starting to get covered. So it's great.
But I also think, to your earlier point, when you talk about what really is a health crisis for women, and just for everyone, actually, because cancer is an issue for everyone, but with the epidemic and the rise in rates of women being diagnosed with breast cancer, and as you said, younger, and obviously also as we advance technologically, where we're able to cure and to place more people in remission of those things, people are going to want to preserve their fertility. You're not going to say, because I was diagnosed with cancer at X age and hopefully recovering from it, that I don't want to be a mom.
Right.
And so I think all of that is really going to start to make the medical community and the healthcare community think differently about this.
Yeah, no, it's true. I can already see it happening just working in the industry. Well, any other thoughts about the topic, or?
Well, I will say, since I have had the procedure done myself, I have had one, two, three, four, five, six or seven girlfriends actually go in and have it done as well.
Wow, that's awesome.
And when I say girlfriends, I mean people who have called and texted me, and about three more that are in the process. One just actually had her fibroids removed recently because her doctor told her she should have them removed before she had the procedure done. So these conversations are helpful, but I will also say that, someone that I'm thinking of in particular, when she called me, she was just so emotionally distraught and so afraid and so unsure. And it's about doing what's right for you.
Right.
And I think that we all deserve the right to be empowered to do what's right for us. And that is not, something that is exclusive to women with resources, but all of us, whatever your circumstances and your situation are, you deserve the right to be empowered to do what is going to work for you. And then if you don't have the resources, we find them. You
Right.
find them. And there are tons of resources
Where
out
there's
there.
a will, there's a way. I like to say
Absolutely.
that. And there's plenty of great doctors out there that want to help. They really do. And
Absolutely.
I think it's just about having that conversation. And I think doctors are becoming more aware, too, that they need to make this more affordable for the average everyday person. And so
I think it
new
will be. I
plans are
think
coming.
the more people are doing it, the costs are going to go
Go
down. I
down.
mean, it's an economies of scale for sure. And so when fewer and fewer people were doing it, and I didn't realize that so few people were doing it. I think I was reading something that you had presented and created about the number of people that annually. I didn't realize that it was so few.
Yeah, I think there was only 5,000 people in 2013, which is really
Yeah.
low.
I was surprised. I must tell you, when I shared my story with Essence and got so much feedback, and people were like, "Oh, you're becoming the poster child for egg freezing," and I was like, "Well, that's weird," but I didn't realize that so few people were doing it. So
I
I'm
think
happy
people
that.
were not really talking about it.
Yeah.
Like there's a stigma to it in some sense where you're like having to give up the idea or the dream of creating a family maybe the old-fashioned way. And I don't think we have to give up that dream. I think we can still have that dream, but egg freezing itself was kind of a taboo topic. And then Apple and Facebook decided to start paying for it as part of their company benefits, and then the topic really exploded.
Well, if Apple and Facebook says it's okay, no, right? No, I'm really happy that the conversation is coming to the forefront. And
Yeah.
as I said, I just hope that more women recognize our options.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. Well, thanks so much, Ty, for just spending a little bit of time talking about your experience and helping other women in general learn about the procedure. So, really appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks so much, Valerie. I appreciate you as well.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's keep in touch.
Okay,
Bye.
ciao.